Hi, this is Rochelle with Live in Vibrancy, and my body is definitely doing some illness right now. It is definitely fighting off something really awful, and I thought it would be a good time to make a video, not because I'm gonna hate this video when I go to edit it, so be forewarned, I'm not editing it, so if it's not good, to all the commenters, it's not really about that for me. Consider me like PBS or Access Television, if you know what that is. I might be dating myself. I don't know if they're even on anymore. But it's really more about the message. I'm not so worried about aesthetics. I'm not here to entertain you. I'm here to help you. So anyway, and I get it's not for everybody, and I'm totally cool with that. So anyway, why am I making a video when I'm sick? Well, because I've talked about this before, and if you want to dive into the research on this, Lisa, I think it's Feldman Barrett, but it might be Barrett Feldman. I believe she's a neuroscientist, and Antonio Damasio have determined that although the original belief was that thoughts create emotions, and yes, they do, because it's the mind-body connection, it's sort of like it's like a hamster wheel. It goes both ways. Your thoughts and the quality of your thoughts are determined by what's going on in your body, because when things are happening in your body, so for example, if you have poor diet, you're going to be more prone to it being more difficult to maintain positive thinking, positive stories, because your brain gets the signal that something's going on in the body. It takes context from the environment and all your past experiences from your subconscious, and it creates a story about what's going on. And so I'm not feeling well right now, and whoa Nelly is every limited story I have about myself being triggered, like some of the really big ones. Now, so I thought this is a good time to make this video, because not only do I get to share that, yes, your gut health, your nutrition, your physical health, these affect the way your mind works, because your brain is creating your reality, but it's not creating it consciously. It's creating it unconsciously. And I have another video to break this down, because I know that for years I knew this, but I didn't really understand the mechanisms. And when I did, because I'm a nerd, I'm a card carrying nerd, it was like, wow, cool. So anyway, so a lot of my stuff is coming up. So for example, I had an exchange with a friend a few days, and although I recognized that her response to me was something I said triggered something for her, her reaction actually triggered something of mine. And I wasn't feeling very well, so I'm maybe more prone for those things to come up. Now, I for the most part, I'm not perfect. I definitely can spiral before I catch myself. So if that's you, the minute you catch yourself, you're already on your way out of it. So give yourself a break. Perfection is not required. You just need to be more in what you want than what you don't want. And so what this looks like is, my story is triggered, and for days, I sort of stewed in a level of resentment, and I could not let it go. It came up in every, I'd be cooking, and when you have that story and it starts cycling, you start telling the story, and you're talking to the person, you're explaining yourself, and but I was explaining from a super defensive place, and I could recognize this because I know that anger is often a reflection of some sort of hurt. It's not about what it is. Anger is a protection energy, basically. So some vulnerable part of me felt really hurt. And so, and I know that if I keep this story going and I let that energy run and run and run, her and I are really good friends. She's definitely picking up on this. And so I don't really want to carry this around. My ego doesn't get to win. I get to choose the kind of life I want. And it isn't, based on, my ego's well, you're not talking to her until she apologizes. When in reality, both of our emotional baggage was triggered in that moment. There is no right and wrong. There's two sides to every piece of paper. I mean, it's flat, and even a piece of paper has two sides because we live in a dual universe. So everything that exists, the opposite also exists. The good news is, if you want something and you don't have it, it exists. Anyhow, because you're in the lack of it. So the having it exists. That's the good news. So anyhow, and so I recognized I could sit with that feeling. And so I would, and I would relax, but it would keep coming up, and it would, like, I'd be able to let the feeling go. Because letting a feeling go isn't about getting rid of the feeling. It's about relaxing into it and just letting it be in your body, and it'll just eventually dissolve in its own time, except when you're like me and there was a story going. So I would literally be like washing dishes and like having this angry conversation and driving and having this angry conversation, and like I journaled it out. I wrote everything I wanted to say, trying to get it out of me, and that didn't help either. And like I felt this urge to want to like tell everybody my side, like, how dare she? Because this is what the ego does. Now, if you value this relationship, you're not going to buy into that, because it's literally, it was just a part of me that was triggered. I get to discover, oh, hey, this core belief, it's activated right now. So the minute I can see it, I'm no longer identified with it. It's no longer mine. I see it's a story. But the problem was I couldn't quite identify, like, what's this about? What's this about? Because my ego wants to tell me, well, it's about that she doesn't blah, 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 blah. That's not true. It's not about that. That's the conscious mind keeping your unconscious, the part of you that's triggered, the part of you that sabotages the things that you want because you're responding from this triggered ego place. That's this part of you being kept in the shadow. Because we don't necessarily like to see those parts of us. I work with a lot of people who, when I begin to touch around these parts, they get very defensive. Like, no, it's not. It's okay. I'm doing really good about it. Okay. The problem with that is that it just keeps running, because you're like, no, get in there. Get in there. Don't come up. No, I'm not supposed to be like this. I'm supposed to be better. I'm supposed to be perfect so I can manifest. No, you really don't have to be. You absolutely don't have to be. But you give that negative part, those negative thoughts, power, because your energy is feeding into that. And I could feel it. It was like ramping up. And like, I have known this person for 20 years and would say she's one of my closest friends, and was just really like, no, never going to talk to her again. Except that I practice what I teach. Like I said, I don't always catch it right away, but my goal is always to notice it. So I noticed it, and I began to do some introspection, and that requires me to be vulnerable enough with myself. So it requires you to be vulnerable enough with yourself to admit that you are carrying a self-concept that is self-defeating, because once you see it, you're no longer identified with it. That's why they call this identity work. So I could see it, and now I can give it what it needs. And now it's integrated, and now I don't feel any of this. I actually, even though I felt attacked, now I feel like I should message her and like apologize for my role in that, and like just share what was going on for me, and that I recognize she was obviously triggered about something, and that I totally didn't mean it that way, and that I'm really sorry that our conversation ended that way. And what does that do? It doesn't make me less. It keeps our connection together. Or I could stay angry and resentful and feel like I need to be right. And then I just lost my friend. So, and the thing is, even if I don't apologize, but I highly recommend apologizing if you feel compelled to. So for me, this is inspired action. I'm probably going to send that message. I feel like I want to dig through this a little more to see like what's here, because it came up like 5 more times with like 5 different people, and I was in different contexts, and I was able to go, oh, it's this story again. Oh, here it is. Because it's never going to come the way the conscious mind delivers it. It's always something hidden, and like, it's like secret code. And so I know that if I wanted to, I can now apply that energy. I can just feel compassion for her. I can feel love for our friendship, gratitude. And that is what connects us. And that is more than likely going to get a result where she reaches out to me because she feels that energy, because we're friends, so we're entangled. We've known each other for so long. Our photons are definitely entangled. And so if I wanted to do it that way, but I don't require everything to be woo-woo, because that's the thing about it is I'm not feeling that my ego's not running the show. And I'm not trying to get anything. Like, I'm open to hear her side about how what I said affected her. And it doesn't necessarily, like, I'm not looking for an outcome. So that's the key with energy. A lot of people sort of miss that bit. So they're like, well, if I do this, then I'm going to get this result. Well, now you're trying and it's inauthentic because you have an ulterior motive. And I heard once, there is this passage, I believe it's in the Armenian Bible, but don't quote me. I heard it from Greg Braden, so you can go like scour his content. But there is, maybe it's, yeah, I don't know. It's like a really Armenian. I don't think it's Armenian. But anyway, it's a very old version of a biblical text. And it says that if you ask without conditions, you will receive. And that's how energy works. No conditions, neutral space. And this is why when you give yourself what you need, nobody likes to hear that. You give yourself what you need, you create neutral space. And from there, you choose what you want. So anyway, hopefully this was helpful. And until next time, I probably will not be so blech. And yeah, live like you can't fail.